Welcome to At Your Pace Online's class on ethics for insurance producers. I'm Joel Daniels. When you first got your license, you were made somewhat aware of the concepts of ethics. Although your pre-licensing class didn't specifically define or explore these concepts and principles, it definitely touched on them when you studied legalities surrounding issues like advertising, producer responsibilities, regulations, fair trade practices, and others. This particular course will concentrate on ethics in a number of ways. We'll discuss the public's view on insurance companies and producers. Would it surprise you that consumers trust individual producers more than insurance companies? They do, and that's a profound statement on the industry and how folks feel about the entity that's offering promises to the consumer. Most people consider the terms ethics and morals to be synonymous, but they aren't. The terms go hand in hand, but there are subtle differences. Ethics tend to be somewhat subjective in practice and method, so we'll give you examples to illustrate how something may be legal, but not necessarily moral or ethical. The course will take a deep look at the different approaches producers can take when faced with an ethical dilemma, and the best practices to solve the issue. The course a producer may take when faced with an ethical issue will often depend on the issue itself. Not all ethical concerns have the same solutions. Much of a person's ethics are based on their life experiences, and we'll consider this with a look at ethics and morals in practice. It is important to consider the times where you might find yourself in a tricky ethical situation and be able to identify potential solutions. There are all sorts of problems that can occur, from a client asking you to do something unethical, but not necessarily illegal, to flat-out illegal practices that you may run into. You'll learn that certain activities must be reported to the insurance division of your state, and the possible outcomes. What about ethical issues from the insurance company side? Unfair trade and claim practices are an important part of an insurer's ethical and legal requirements, and states will come down hard on insurance companies who don't follow the laws and the rules. The loss of an insurer's certificate of authority is one possible ramification, as well as fines and loss of prestige. Loss of prestige? The unfortunate reality is that when producers or insurance companies are sanctioned, it has a tendency to reflect badly on the entire insurance industry, especially if the penalty is large enough to make the evening news or social media platforms. Once trust and confidence is broken, it's notoriously difficult to rebuild. Your agency is also high on the list of ethical priorities, and agencies that do not carefully and thoughtfully consider the ethical implications and potential problems of their producers are ripe for a liability lawsuit. We'll discuss an ethics equivalent of an employee handbook, a company's code of ethics. We'll study the information and materials that should be included within this important handbook. Several pieces of legislation will be examined, and you'll see that the Fair Credit Reporting Act and the Unfair Trade Practices Acts mandate that insurance professionals follow specific credit and trade practices or face potential penalties. It's unfortunate that we have to rely on laws and rules to keep folks ethical. Some producers have made a practice of either working in the gray area or directly violating moral and ethical principles. These rules were established as a way to protect consumers and to promote accountability. There are laws governing ethical conduct in every state, and we'll take a look at recent and amended laws and how they affect ethics with regard to protection of confidential information. We'll also introduce terms you need to be familiar with and the legal framework regarding ethics in the workplace with your clients and with your insurer or your insurers. From there, we'll move on to discussion of how ethics applies to your business and life and to society as a whole.